Hi everyone, it's me again, Joann. So, for today's video, we were going to talk about the authentic assessment and the uses of authentic assessment in our learning system. So, before I start my discussion, I asked some of my classmates and group mates to define what is authentic assessment. And here are their answers.
Authentic assessment is the idea of using creative learning experiences to test students' skills and knowledge in realistic situations.
Authentic assessment are engaging and worthy problems or questions of importance, in which students must use knowledge to fashion performances effectively and creatively. The tasks are either replicas of or analogous to the kind of problems faced of an adult citizens and consumers or professionals in the field. Grant Wiggins, 1987.
Very well said, my dearest classmates. So, all your definitions of authentic assessments are all correct. So, based on what you've defined the definitions of authentic assessment, all I can say is that you've listened very well to the discussion of Professor Marlowe when he discussed it to our lessons. So, let's come now to our first discussion in my video. So, what is authentic assessment? And what is the uses of authentic assessment in our learning system nowadays? So, first, let me define what is authentic assessment. Authentic assessment is a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful applications of essential knowledge and skills. Authentic assessment, based on what I've defined earlier, is that a form of assessment in which the students perform a real-world task. So it means that in this assessment, it is a very important tool for students in order for them to become ready when they go to the real-world situations, like when they became a professional ones. So, authentic assessment is one of a tool for the teachers to help the students engage or master their skills or talents in order for them to nurture it or to grow it to enable to use the students in the real world situation. So that is the meaning or the real meaning of the definition of the authentic assessment. Sometimes our teachers or our professors giving us activities like role-playing, demonstrating, reporting, and then sometimes they giving us also a showcase e-portfolio, because those activities is one of the examples of authentic assessment. So, authentic assessment performing in a real-world task. So, those activities is the best examples or a practice in which it can uses to the real-world situations when the students became a professional one or go in that a real-world situations. Authentic assessment is the idea of creating learning experiences to test students' knowledge and skills in a realistic situations. Authentic assessments also measures student success in a way it's relevant to the skills required once they finish the course or the degree program. So in order to understand more what is the authentic assessment and what is the uses of authentic assessment in learning system, I have an example of a video showing the meaning or the definitions of the authentic assessment. And here it is.
Hello and welcome to Teachings in Education, Authentic Assessments. So, Why should educators use authentic assessments? Essays and class tests don't really relate to the real world. An actual driving test, which is an authentic assessment, is the best way to determine if you're going to be a good driver. Simply passing a written test isn't enough to determine driving ability. Now, how do we incorporate authentic assessments into the classroom? Art class, for example, is based on painting and projects. Art students should be assessed by their artistic talents. The curriculum of many STEM courses today are tailored for authentic assessments. So then, try your best to relate these authentic assessments to real life for students. Give students the opportunity for more lab experiments. Next, higher order thinking skills. Now, writing a column for a school paper requires students to evaluate and dissect information. Authentic assessments such as these challenge students to create and solve problems. So, having students create an anti-bullying commercial would require skills simply beyond recall. You may allow your students' imagination to create their own assessments. Next, they must apply learned knowledge. Overall, we want our students to have successful careers, and all students must one day apply what they learned in school to the work setting. Doctors not only learn anatomy, but they must apply that knowledge to their patients. Real life does not occur in multiple choice questions. Real life does not occur in essays. Lastly, rubrics. Rubrics are mostly tied to authentic assessments. Rubric design may vary, whether it be holistic or objective. Authentic assessments are very subjective in nature, so rubrics are needed to set criteria and to set goals for these authentic assessments. Now, right now I just want to say thank you for your time. Please share, like, and most importantly, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.
So the video that I presented to you is all about the authentic assessment, its meaning, its definition, and then its uses in our education system. So before I go to our next topic, I asked my group mates to give some examples of uses of the authentic assessment in our learning system. So here are some answers that they've given to me.
By using open-ended questions and established performance criteria, authentic assessment focuses on the learning process, enhances the development of real-world skills, encourages higher-order thinking skills, and teaches the learners to assess their own work and performance.
The purpose of authentic assessment is to provide students with ample opportunities to engage in authentic tasks, so as to develop, use, and extend their knowledge, higher order thinking, and 21st century competencies.
Authentic assessment is a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills.
Authentic assessment evaluates whether the students can successfully transfer the knowledge and skills gained in the classroom to various contexts, scenarios, and situations.
Authentic assessment measures the student's success in a way that relevant to the skills required of them once they have finished the course or the degree program.
Yes, very good guys. All your answers are correct. Thank you very much for cooperating and for showing support in this video. Thank you. So, let's come now to the uses of authentic assessment. So, what is the uses of authentic assessment in our learning system and in our real-world situations and on how it uses as a tool to improve or to nurture our skills and talents and to have a weapon in our real world situations. One of the uses of authentic assessment is that authentic assessment focuses on the students using and applying the knowledge and skills in real life settings. Like, for instance, our teachers or our professors give us an activities like role-playing activities. So, a role-playing activity is one of example in the authentic assessment activities. So, in that activities, we were going to make a scenario that is related to the real life or real life situations. So, on that video, we are going to make a completion on a real world task. So, it is lie on the authentic assessment. So another uses of authentic assessment is that authentic assessments provide students ample opportunity to engage authentic tasks as to develop, use, and extend their knowledge, higher order thinking, and other 21st century competences in learning system. So that is all for my topic in authentic assessment, the definition and then the uses of authentic assessment in our learning system in education. So thank you for listening, and then I hope you have gained some knowledge in my topic.
Hello everyone, I am Gab and I'm going to talk about the importance of authentic assessment. So it says here that authentic assessment attempts to demonstrate what a student really learns in class rather than the student's ability to do well on traditional tests and quizzes. Many have claimed that this type of assessment is an excellent means of evaluating a student's knowledge of subject matter. So I have here a video showing more information about the importance of authentic assessment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mac Adkins, founder and Chief Academic Officer for Smarter Services. Thank you for checking out the second in this two-part blog series titled The Role of Smarter ID in Compliance with Authentication Regulations and Its Use with Authentic Assessments. In the first part, I focused on meeting regulatory requirements for learner authentication. And in this second part, I will focus on using Smarter ID with authentic assessment. The pandemic has changed many elements of the student experience of higher education. In addition to the obvious elimination of many social elements, administrative and instructional aspects were forced to change as well. All student services such as advising, tutoring, financial aid counseling, etc. had to be provided at a distance. All instruction also had to be moved online into some form of emergency remote instruction if it was not available online prior to the pandemic. Another part of the instructional experience that had to be considered was assessment. Determining the level of learner mastery is a central component of the degree granting responsibility of a college or university. All of these gargantuan changes had to be made very quickly. Now, as we begin to reflect on this year of transition, many lessons are being learned that can actually reshape and perhaps improve higher education post-pandemic. One shift that many faculty made in their courses was the move to integrating more authentic assessment in their courses. During the pandemic, there was much pushback from student groups pertaining to virtual proctoring. Concerns were expressed regarding issues including student privacy, data security, racial bias, and accommodations. As an alternative to proctored exams, some faculty included opportunities for authentic assessment in their online courses. Authentic assessment is used to gauge not only what learners know, but what they can do with that knowledge. This type of assessment can take many forms, such as essays, oral presentations, physical projects, experiments, portfolios, interviews, journals, and more. Sometimes the instructor may prescribe the form of authentic assessment, and sometimes learners are empowered to identify and create their own form of authentic assessment. The key is that learners are doing something with their knowledge and providing evidence of that action for evaluation. One of the respected authorities on the subject of authentic assessment is Grant Wiggins. He wrote that an assessment is authentic if it is realistic, requires judgment and innovation, asks the student to do the subject, replicates or simulates the context in which adults are tested in the workplace or in civic or personal life, assesses the student's ability to effectively and efficiently use a repertoire of knowledge and skills to negotiate a complex task, and allows appropriate opportunities to rehearse, practice, consult resources, and get feedback on and refine performances and products.
In addition to that, educators define authentic assessment as an approach to measure student performance in a direct, relevant way to see if the learning objectives were met. Educators might use projects such as reports, journals, speeches, videos, and interviews with the students to measure their understanding of the subject material. So now let's go back to the continuation of the video.
If you were not already familiar with it, I hope you found this very brief introduction to authentic assessment beneficial. It certainly has some advantages and disadvantages, such as the additional time and effort it typically requires of faculty. But you may be thinking, what is its relationship to Smarter ID? Well, consider this. Since the basic premise of authentic assessment is that the learner must do something to demonstrate their level of mastery, it is of utmost importance that the person who actually does the action is the actual person who will receive credit in the course. In many courses, the primary learner authentication event is during a proctored exam. Since authentic assessment is often utilized in lieu of a proctored exam, it is imperative that some form of learner authentication also take place during authentic assessment. So, how can Smarter ID be used to authenticate learners while they are engaged in authentic assessment? First, let's review how Smarter ID works. By design, Smarter ID is used to authenticate learners outside of a proctored exam. Smarter ID is used during a course through LMS integration to make sure the student doing the work is the one getting the grade in the course. Smarter ID gives an option of two forms of learner authentication: facial recognition and/or keystroke recognition. Faculty members determine the frequency of the random authentication prompts. When a student is prompted to authenticate, they follow on-screen instructions to look at their webcam or type a sentence to authenticate. A good practice while using authentic assessment is to require that the documentation of mastery be submitted in a multi-step process, not all at one time. Suppose that in a nursing course, a student is tasked to create a case study of a patient describing their presenting problem and plan of care. Instead of basing the entire grade on the final document, the authentic assessment can be conducted in multiple phases. The first phase could be participation in a discussion board in which the students reflect on plans of care within the community of the course. The second phase could be a recorded video in which the student verbally describes the disease scenario and intended plan of care and submits the video to the instructor via the LMS. The third and final phase could be the final 5-page paper. As the student is active in the LMS with each of these steps, they could be randomly prompted to authenticate using Smarter ID. So, if you are thinking about integrating authentic assessment into your courses, or if you've already been using it and are looking for ways to strengthen your approach, consider using Smarter ID to authenticate learners as they are engaged in the project. If you fail to do this, then you just may be giving students a grade for work that they got someone else to do for them.
So that's it for my topic, and in behalf of my partner Joann, we are very much thankful for your time and effort in watching our vlog, and we hope that you have digested many informations about authentic assessment. So that's it. God bless everyone and stay safe always. Bye-bye.